Shalom. Most congregations in diaspora this week will be reading Parshat Korach, one which always reminds me of my birthday and the proximity of the Bar Mitzvah anniversary. And this year I can add the special milestone of completing 10 years of service to my congregation, Beth Tikvah, here in Naples. For 13-year-olds, the perspective of the Korach story is simplistic. A mob gathered to kvetch against Moses and Aaron, to express their disappointment and claim leadership positions for themselves. Today, however, I see in the tale of Korach an historical tipping point. This was a true social, political, and religious movement for change. Abba Evan, the great statesman and historian, observed that the first reference to the Israelites as a people comes in the book of Exodus, in the words, Vayilonu ha'am, the people complained. These people entered history in a querulous mood and have remained in that posture fairly consistently ever since. Let's take note that is literally not your grandfather's Israel. They lived at the cusp of a new Israel, one which emerged from Egypt with a configuration of religious authority, legal guidance, and a new political system. And everybody senses more changes in the world, in the wind, ahead of their journey. Now, however, this narrative remains a very complicated story, conflating apparently different sources and traditions. Many lessons have been proposed by legendary commentators promoting contemporary Jewish values. I would like to point out one example from the Midrash, dating about 1,000 years after Korach led his rebellion. In this Midrash, he confronts Moses with a trick question to deceive him in front of the listening public. He asks Moses, does a library full of scriptural books need a mezuzah? Now, when he speaks of scriptural books, he probably refers to scrolls of the Torah. Moses answered him, yes, even such a Torah library would be required to have a mezuzah. But then Korach points out, since the whole Torah has thousands of verses in it, and they do not exempt the library, how do only a few verses in the mezuzah fulfill the mitzvah? Korach twists the argument like the demagogue that he is, revealing his real intentions to the listening mob. This failure on your logic proves that these are not laws about which you have been commanded by God, but rather you're inventing them out of your own heart. Now, this scene is set for replacement of Moses and Aaron. I want you to remember, however, it's just a midrash, a rabbinic creation filling in for what is not written in the Torah. This exchange may have taken place or not, but it still illustrates what could have transpired. This one example demonstrates how our sages interpreted the written and the oral law in order to provide each generation with laws and parables that would bring the Torah to life and imbue meaning to their own lives. Beginning with our patriarchs and matriarchs, followed by the priests, prophets, monarchs, and in later days, rabbis, it has been our nature to quarrel and to debate each other across the centuries in constant search for truth and authenticity. Moses was right because he was Eved Elohim. He was God's servant. He was satisfied with his allotment in life. Korah, on the other hand, was wrong because he was never satisfied with what he had. As for me, 40 years after my own bar mitzvah and 35 after receiving my ordination at JTS, I look back at the many gifts life has bestowed upon me and can only be thankful to God for the opportunities he has granted me to emulate to the best of my abilities the millenary example of Moshe Rabbeinu, to serve Am Israel as a dutiful servant of the Lord. Always reminded of the words of the Mishnah, Ezehu Hashir, who is rich, Hasameach Bechelko, he who is content with his portion. And indeed today, I am thankful and content. Amen.